Hello my friends, thank you all for joining me. In a previous video, I went over the rookie quarterbacks and how I think they're going to do this season and how I think they're going to do in the future seasons, given the situation they're in. So, through as much popular demand as a small channel like mine can have, I decided I'm going to do the same thing to the rookie running back class. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did last time with the quarterbacks, where I will only do the ones who I either expect to start or who I think have a legitimate shot at starting, barring some, with the exception of some catastrophic injury. Like for instance, whoever Shaquan Barkley's backup is doesn't really matter to me unless he has a out of nowhere injury. Probably a bad example, but you get the idea. So here I have, let's see here, 7 running backs I want to talk about. Now I think there were like 12 running backs drafted or something like that, but a lot of those I don't expect to start or even get a second string work. But here are 7 ones that I either expect to start or expect to get some kind of workload. And I'll be talking to you about who I think might have a good future with their team. So let's get started. And we'll go in order of when drafted. Now, probably something I should mention is that unlike with the quarterback class, running back classes from draft to draft, I know very little about. Like, I hear a lot about quarterbacks, I hear a lot about wide receivers, offensive linemen, etc., etc. But running backs, I tend to kind of overlook, mainly because they don't get talked about as much, unless it's like Ezekiel Elliott or Shaquan Barkley, who they expect to go top 10 or even top 5. Most drafts don't happen like that though, and when that happens, I don't know much about them. So here, I only know really about one, and the rest I had to kind of research a little bit. And even then, some of them were hard to come up. So a lot of this will be based on the team they're around and less about their talent. So let's get started. First, I want to talk about the first running back chosen at 24th overall by the Steelers, Naji Harris. Of all the running backs drafted, this is one that everyone and their mother, including me, expect to be the workhorse for his team. And I'm recording this video after week 1, all the games in week 1, so I think I read somewhere that he did receive the majority of the touches for running back. So good for him. Now, if I'm going to be completely honest, I don't like this pick for Pittsburgh. This is not to say that Naji is not a great running back. He probably is. In fact, I've only seen footage of him, of all of them, and he looks explosive and pretty powerful in college. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate to the NFL. But from what I've seen, at least he does have talent around him. However, I don't think it's a good situation for him because of the team he's surrounded by. Now, the defense is outstanding, so that's going to help if he is used to milk the clock or whatever. However, the Pittsburgh Steelers' offensive line is not good. Part of the reason why James Conner struggled so much the last couple of years is because their offensive line has to work their way up to Swiss cheese. So I fear that he's going to struggle on the outset because of the porous offensive line. Now I do know I did hear somewhere they did kind of remedy it a little bit in free agency, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. I read somewhere that they're still like bottom 10 in terms of offensive line, but we'll see what happens. From what I've heard, they weren't too bad during the Bills game, but not great. If I was going to be honest, running backs are really, and quarterbacks that matter, are really only as good as the offensive line. So if I was the Steelers, since running backs are pretty easy to find, I would have just drafted like offensive lineman or something, the best offensive lineman available, and bolster that up before you get your running back. Because Harris will only be useful if the offensive line can block. So he could potentially be the best rookie running back, again, barring any injury of this class, because apparently, from what I read, it's a relatively weak running back class, and a lot of them are drafted by ones who already kind of have starter, built-in starters. But again, who knows? We'll see what happens. Ultimately, I don't really like the fit for Harris, and I think he's going to struggle unless Pittsburgh makes strides to fix the offensive line. We'll see what happens. The very next pick, actually, which I totally forgot about this, because this year I wasn't able to watch the draft live, so a lot of the picks just kind of went by me. The 25th pick was running back Travis Etienne, I guess, Etienne from Jacksonville, 25th overall. This one was an interesting pick. I don't know if they traded up to get him. I don't know. Like, I didn't watch the draft. So, if they traded up, good for them. And when you trade up like that, you expect him to start. But I don't know if it's going to injure or not. But Etienne didn't see at least any rushes in the Jacksonville game. I don't know if this is necessarily a good pick. I would have, to help Lawrence, I would have either gotten offensive line or bolstered at defense, which has completely gone to crud since that fluke 2017 season. Ultimately, it sounds like he's more of a pass catching back from what I've read, at least, and that's actually not that. That's actually a pretty good fit for Jacksonville. But similar to Harris, Etienne, I guess, is going into a situation that does not really benefit him. He's going with an inexperienced quarterback. He's going to struggle. He's going into an offensive line that I think is about average, and he's going to a defense that has been completely gutted. It's just a bad team right now, and a running back like him in the first round is just not going to help anything. Let's just be honest. I wish him the best, but I don't think it's going to help. Next, we have Javonte Williams of Denver. Forgive me if I am saying these names wrong. I'm trying my best. He was drafted in the second round. I don't remember the order, but I think he was only second round running back. And Denver is a much better situation, in my opinion, than, say, Jacksonville and maybe even Pittsburgh. I read somewhere that their offensive line is actually pretty decent. Even their receiving core, apparently, is kind of lacking. And the defense is actually one of the best. And Bridgewater is at least a good stopgap for now. Now, from what I've read from Williams, he's similar to Etienne, where he's more of a pass-catching, quick back. But again, it's not a bad thing. Now, I think he's in a much better situation than Etienne because I think he has probably more of a capacity to start now, or to start soon, than the guy from Jacksonville does. And here's why. First off, Denver got rid of Philip Lindsay. He is in Houston, apparently. So they have Melvin Gordon instead. And Melvin Gordon, if any of you recall, is wildly inconsistent with playing. In fact, he's very turnover heavy. It's possible that if Gordon struggles or becomes too turnover heavy, that Williams, from his sheer explosiveness and speed, might get the workhorse, or at least more than 50% of the carries. I'm not really going to talk about who can be a workhorse. Again, barring injury, the only one who can be and will be Naji Harris, simply because they don't have really anyone else. Everyone else here is going to be could get a plurality of the carries, but will not get like workhorse carries. I consider a workhorse bat to get 80% plus of the carries, usually 90% plus. And the only one who can do that is Naji Harris, only because of the situation. The other ones don't have the same situation. That being said, if Javonte Williams could get 60% of the carries if either Denver falls behind a lot or Melvin Gordon struggles with his fumbleitis. So we will see what happens there. But I do think that this is a great situation for him, a pretty good team around him, and a situation, while not guaranteed like Harris's is, could see some play if Gordon reverts back to his old ways. Next is Trey Sermon of the 49ers, who's drafted in the third round, I believe. Now, he is on a loaded San Francisco roster. First off, you have Mostert, who has turned out to be a pretty good back for 49ers. Now, I forgot his name, but they had a second running back who's also really good and who was a rookie last year and stole carries from Mostert and also looked really good. Now, of all the teams that I'm going to talk about, Sermon is on the best team. 49ers are a really good team that only struggled last year because everyone and their mother was hurt. But if that doesn't happen this year, they should have a great year. And Sermon right now, who I expect is probably number 3 on the depth chart, Kyle Shanahan is the head coach, by the way, has made stars out of pretty much any and every running back he's ever had. So Sermon could be in the same position. And who knows, he might decide, you know what, Sermon's cheap right now, he's also young, we have him for a couple of years. I'm going to give him a number of the carries now, see if I can keep him for a couple of years and get rid of, say, Mostert, who's going to want a premium. That's possible. Like, Sermon has probably an outside chance to get a plurality of the carries, but still, it's a better chance than, say, Etienne, for instance. Um, so, who knows? He might. Now, it's possible that Shanahan could be in the whole if it ain't broke, don't fix it mode. If they're doing so well, they may just keep Mostert on the other guy. But who knows? But, if it comes to team now and team future, Sermon is in the best position. The big issue with him is going to be is that lower depth chart. Not only the lower depth chart, but the nature of the coach, who doesn't really seem to care who the running back is, as he'll just he'll make go with what he's got. So it's kind of a mixed bag here, but I think for Sermon, it could be the ceiling's high, the floor is low. So we'll see what happens. Next I want to talk about is Michael Carter from the Jets. The reason I want to put him on here is simply because Jets are a mess. I don't even remember who their main running back is. I know it's not Bell. I don't even think they know. They don't rush a whole lot because they keep falling behind. So this could be good for Carter simply because he's in a really bad situation. He's in a really bad team. I just saw the stat sheet because I didn't watch this game. I didn't see anything about this game against the Carolina Panthers. And I forgot who it was, but their main running back only had 9 carries. And it was a relatively close game. So Carter, who apparently is more of a speedster, could end up seeing more carries if the running game just does not take off like it needs to help Zach Wilson. I think it's an outside chance, but that could happen. Now, when it comes to his current position now or in the future, it doesn't look good. Let's be honest. The team is not good. Nothing in their history makes me believe that they are going to get better. So I think that for Carter, this situation is really bad. It would be better for him to be the 4th stringer in San Francisco, quite honestly. The Jets just aren't going to get any good, and he will waste a lot of his good years behind offensive line that might get better sometimes, but with a team that's just not going to be good. So it is what it is. Next we have, and then forgive me for butchering his name, Kene. I'm guessing the end is silent. Kene Wangwu. Kene, I guess. I'm going to call him Kene. Anyway, he was drafted in the 5th round, I believe, by the Vikings. Now, generally, with Dalvin Cook being a stud, I would not even mention Kene here, or Kenny here, because it's like Cook is clearly the feature back. But the reason I mention him right now is because Cook does kind of have a history of being injured. Now, lately, he's been better at it, but he still has an injury. It's possible that this year he could get injured and be out for several games, and Kene could just come in and just light it up. Now, I think he's 3rd on depth chart, so I don't necessarily expect that to happen, but who knows? When injuries happen, a whole bunch of things could go wrong. So we'll see what happens. Now, when it comes to the future, Vikings are kind of an odd team. Seems like when one side of the ball gets good, the other side of the ball kind of falters. The only time we really got together was with that magical 13-3 year. But when Cousins came in, the defense was good, but Cousins kind of struggled his first year for the most part. Statistically, he was good, but he struggled to win games. Then that playoff run, their offense got good, and the defense kind of struggled. Now their offense is actually pretty potent, but the defense is Swiss cheese. Their offensive line has gotten better, so when it comes to team, I think for the most part, he's on an above average team, so that could help him if his name is called upon. However, the fact that it's Dalvin Cook's backfield to lose, I don't expect it to happen barring some kind of injury. But considering Cook's history, that is more likely to happen than, say, with Jacksonville, who Carlos Hyde does not really have a history of injuries. And last but not least, the running back I'm going to talk about is Ramondre Stevenson of New England. Now, this is my team, so I kind of know a little bit about what's going on here. It's worth mentioning that we're kind of like the 49ers, where we don't really have a workhorse back. We just kind of go by committee. However, that committee got a lot smaller since Sony Michel was just traded recently. Now, I'm putting Stevenson on here because he is the 2nd running back, and Harris, whatever his name is, from last year apparently did very well, which is why we traded Sony Michel. However, Stevenson, they said, is looking really good in preseason and could very well challenge Harrison or whatever his name is, I didn't watch a lot last year, could challenge him for the workhorse back, or as much of a workhorse as you can be on New England. So I think that is probably more likely than pretty much most of the running backs drafted ahead of him. And when it comes to team, I think he's on an above average team. Defense is really good, and the offense generally has good offensive linemen. And if we have a good offensive line, then he could succeed if his name is called upon. Apparently, he's more of a beefy back. Like he's like pretty tough and he's like pretty big and tough, which is good if you're going to be the on the goal line. So that could very much help him. And who knows? If we decide, you know what, we're going to pass to wide receivers, but if we're going to run, we are going to use big running backs. His name can be called on more often. So I think that he has a much better shot than some other ones I mentioned. There were other running backs that were drafted, in fact, several other running backs that were drafted, but they are clearly role players or roster fillers, at least from the preliminary research I did. So I'm not going to mention them. If you guys want to, crap talk me in the comments about how I'm completely wrong, I have no idea what I'm talking about, please do, just keep it respectful. But I know this video is a lot shorter than my quarterback one, but that's because running backs don't tend to cross my radar simply because of how expendable they are, how short-lived they can be, and really how little the sports media pay attention to them, at least when the draft comes in college. At least that's what I've noticed. But again, that's my opinion, so please like this video, share this video, as sharing is the biggest way to help a channel like mine, and please leave a comment down below, and subscribe to this channel as well. So until the next video, thank you all very much for watching. I appreciate every one of you. Have a wonderful day, and God bless.